Well, welcome back to Krown's Cave. Waking up for a little bit of a later morning over here in a very cloudy and overcast Chicago, Illinois right now. So please bear with me as I feel like my brain's just kind of starting up right now. Maybe I need a little bit more time, but you know what? We got plenty to talk about on good old Bitcoin on not just the lower time frames, but the medium time frames and even the high and the macro time frames today. Very special day as pretty much all new stuff all the whole way around. So without further ado, I want to waste no more time of yours, of course, as well. And look in the camera and say, I wish you well, wish you the best, the happiest, and my God, man, let's get in a live stream right now. Let's initiate that teleportation, and hey, where'd it go? Hey, what the fuck? What's going on over there? Oh, whoops, wrong button. Just difficulties, and into the live stream we go. Beautiful Bitcoin on the daily right here, as you can see, just playing out the range we spoke about for the last couple days between the blue 3.7 cent exponential moving average to the downside, which puts us at a base at around 7,700, and the 200 cent moving average right here, this white moving average right around 83.50ish region to the upside. So I do believe that we're going to be playing around that region in the low and the medium time frames for the next I don't know, probably the next day or two or whatever it ends up being. And then we'll probably have resolution on top of that. If we do break this to the upside, I'd actually just very, very easily look for a quick move up here towards 87.50ish region. So, $400 play at the very least, which I think is very tradable. If we were to break north, which I am not so confident in that happening, even though I am long right now, which I'll show in just a second. Or if we do break this this blue 3.7 cent exponential moving average to the downside, the next target that I'd be looking at to the downside would be all the way around here at around about 7,200ish region, 7,250 in this pocket between about 7,200 and let's call it like 6,850, 6,900, somewhere in this region right here. You have a nice little order block right here coming in from the past histories of Bitcoin. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's actually go down to the lower time frames right now and do a little bit more of a dissection in here as we put on the drawing tools, and we can see that we are pretty much just still holding this downtrend resistance line right here and creating lower highs along the way, and actually some lower lows as well. So as long as we're kind of wedged within this territory, we just tested the upside resistance, rejected thus far, and now I'd be looking for a test of support and figure out exactly where we find that one, which thus far the easy play has already kind of been had down to the 80-50ish region right here. I don't really have a strong opinion on what we do in like the extremely low time frames. If I had to say something, it looks like we probably pop back up, maybe hit like 81.50 again, and then probably come back down and test out the supports. And then that's really gonna set up the next sort of intro to the next week of action. I'd imagine as once we come back down to the bottom side of support once again, then we'd actually officially have a descending triangle within this region, still have lower highs and technically lower lows, and well, that would set us up to actually have continuations to the downside. So if you are bearish, that's essentially what you're looking at. But even though I look at that, and even though I say these things, and even though I am talking about some pretty nasty bearish targets here, ever since we broke the 9,400ish level to the downside, I mean, shit, man. My big thing was as soon as we lost 10,300 a couple weeks ago, that was my cue to not be bullish or well, not necessarily not be bullish, but be bearish, essentially. Give the odds in the favor of the bears court. And then once we broke the 9,400ish or 9,450ish region right here, well, that was the flooding territory. That was the triggerable offense for the actual flood to the downside. And our first set of targets was hit. We first kind of hit the 200 exponential moving average right here, about 8,500, small bounce, very, very quickly faded. And then we hit the next target right around the 3.7 cent exponential moving average right here. That's the one that I did end up buying. So following up on this, I do want to show that, yes, I am still long. I'm still holding a good amount of that position. I think I bought about 30 Bitcoins at around 77.50ish region average price, and I'm still holding on to all of them. Not all of them. I took profit on 10 of them as we showed during that live trade video, which, by the way, if you're interested in that, definitely go check out the live trade and technical analysis playlist, as that's what it's all about, as I've been getting a lot of requests for that. Anyways, so I'm still holding about 2/3 of that position, and it is hedged with some call options right now. But the thing is, and this is speaking purely as a trader now. So as soon as we broke this guy to the downside and we initiated those that first set of targets, keep in mind that the full target technically is all the way down here towards that 6,700, 6,800ish level right here in this blue box territory between 60, let's call it 68, and the 236 Fibonacci retracement right here, which puts us at around $7,000 base. So technically speaking, if you are a pattern trader, that's what you're looking at for this. And there's a lot of good confluences within this as well, as not only will be coming back down and hitting a major fib, but we'll also be hitting just our major structural support coming in from middle of May of this current year as well. And not only that, but also just this nice horizontal lining up beautifully with that measure move as well. And of course, we do go over, I believe it's on perhaps, oh yes, it's the monthly. That's right. The monthly, if we look at the monthly, we do have the 21x benchmark moving average sitting right in pretty right around that $7,000 level as well. So many, sorry, not $7,000, 6,800 actually. So perfectly lining up with that measure move. And if you're not familiar with, or sorry, if you're not familiar with my spiel here, which I haven't said in a long time because I was repeating it verbatim like a million fucking times over here, last year in September, October, November of 2018. Well, usually, or sorry, not usually, but in traditional markets where I come from, I would use the yellow 21x benchmark moving average to judge if an asset's like generally bearish, generally bullish on a long-term time frame scale. And when you're above it, generally bullish. When you're below it, generally bearish. Well, funnily enough, that 21x benchmark moving average comes in right around about 6,800, perfectly aligned with that measure move. And so there certainly are a lot of structural things suggesting that we actually do go lower. And with all of that said, I would be looking for a massive bounce there. Could it be a reversal? Yes. In fact, I'd even treat this current level that we're at right now as a potential reversal. I'll always kind of go in with that. Like I said, I did buy it, but keep in mind that I am very, very happy to get out of this position and take profits on this immediately. As soon as I get as soon as I get any sort of an indication that this bounce is quickly getting faded, which it actually kind of already does feel like. So far, a pretty damn weak attempt. And as long as we're below the 200 moving average, I am immediately bearish. As long as we're below the 200x benchmark moving average right here, I am more like medium term, I suppose, bearish. And of course, if Bitcoin could get back above 9,200, our breakdown point, or just back above the weekly 21x benchmark moving average, which I believe is right around 9,200, it looks like, then I'd immediately not be bearish at all, and I'd probably be bullish once again. But for now, as long as we're below the weekly 21x benchmark moving average at about 9,200, I am bearish, on the greater sphere of it. And of course, when we look at the lower time frames, those two levels that we just discussed, those are for the more immediate responses on Bitcoin. So that's kind of how I'm judging it right now. Now, I think it's extremely unlikely that we actually blow through and break the green 55x benchmark moving average on the weekly dollar time frame on the first pass. So that's why I did buy this area. And like I said, is it possible to produce a reversal? I treat every major level as a potential place to produce a reversal. But let's talk about why I'm not necessarily on the side of a lot of people, I think, in this space right now, who think that this is just a pullback right here before reversing up and going back up to $10,000 and and beyond and back to the moon, and why this was such a big deal to me. Okay, so first and foremost, let's lay down a foundation. To me, what we saw here is a massive change in behavior. What does a change in behavior imply? A change in behavior implies essentially that we are not doing we are in a new phase in the market cycle. And of course, before that, the couple phases before that was we had accumulation down here, boom, massive markup, phenomenal parabolic rally to our blow off top at about $14,000. Then we consolidate for 3 months, so phase change right there, and then we resolve that consolidation to the downside right here. This whole triangle breaking to the downside, not fucking good. We do have volume signature also confirming this, as volume is once again spiking back up, and we also have volatility metrics also agreeing with this, as we do see historical volatility percentile really start to hold this trend line and expand once again. So for the last 3 months, we were completely collapsing on it, which is by design, of course. But once we start to see it expand in this way, and let me just make sure that my microphone's working. Okay, we're recording as well. Good, awesome, great. And welcome the unnamed person who I would like to welcome into this cave. Anyways, we do see volatility expanding once again. So volatility expanding once we have structural breakdown and all of these things start to go in the same direction. You have to really realize that, you have to really look at our momentum oscillators as well and see that expansion is likely to come to the downside. Not only that, but we are doing things that we have not done before in a general bullish market. So in a general bullish market, Bitcoin has never closed below the 200 moving average or the 200x benchmark moving average ever in the history of Bitcoin, not even once during any general upwards market or bull market or whatever you want to call it. And it's a purple moving average right here and the white 200 moving average right here. And as you can see in the past history of Bitcoin, during 2018, these guys obviously wrangled price action and lassoed it down. And then during our last bull market right here, Bitcoin did come down and test them a few times here and there. But as you can see, all the tests were immediately bought on up and only produced a wick. We never closed below, and we especially never opened and closed below. And this is also good throughout the history of Bitcoin. Again, throughout a general bullish market, right on over here, still same thing. Every time that we come down to the 200 exponential moving average, it's a phenomenal buy signal, and we rally up immediately. As you can see, I'm sure that someone's going to look at this right on over here and say, Krown, we closed below. Well, this is not necessarily a bullish market because we quite literally had an 82% drawback right there. I don't know what markets would be considered bullish after having an 82% dump in your face. So to me, this was your long form consolidation / bear market, whatever you want to call it, a different phase, so to speak. Anyways, well and far away from what we're doing out right on over here. And of course, we have got our first open and close below not just the 200 exponential moving average, but also the 200 simple as well. Not only that, but let's go over here to the 12-hour dildo time frame, which I think is pretty fucking important right now, as we have officially gotten the 12-hour dildo death cross as of the last tick, which is pretty far away from price action right now. But to be fair, we probably do, that probably allows price to rally back up, maybe around like, I don't know, 83, 8,500, something like that, and then put in like a legitimate, next local high. But as far as I'm concerned right here from the macro, looking at again, just looking at the volume, I mean, this is change behavior volume. I mean, this is quite literally a bigger 12-hour dildo right here than we had on our buying climax right here. Anyways, we do have the death cross between the green 55 and the purple 200. We've never gotten a death cross in a general bullish market on the 12-hour dildo time frame. In fact, the 12-hour death cross and golden cross has been a pretty damn good timer of entries, I suppose. This one right here telling you to buy on the 1st of April, it looks like, before this massive explosion to the upside a few months later. And of course, the last time that we got a death cross was all the way back on over here. Pretty terrible timing on the death cross right here, but the death cross did hold true, as we never got golden crossed after that the whole way through from 2018 to the switch around from bear to bull of the last one. Anyways, going a little bit more back into the history of Bitcoin, you can see that never during the last prior bull market did we have a death cross on the 12-hour daily time frame. We certainly had many closes below the 200 exponential moving average, but that's already been destroyed well long ago in our current trajectory. And we certainly did not have any sort of death cross go on. Going even further back in the history of Bitcoin, this death cross on the 12-hour played out phenomenally. This one as well, both actually timing some pretty damn good entries. And then we had the same one off right here, where Bitcoin had an 80%. I don't want to call it an 80% correction a correction. It's not a correction. It's fucking bear market dump. And then quickly got the golden cross relatively soon afterwards. So again, same thing. This is a change behavior. This is what we're talking about right now. Not only that, but looking at the weekly, of course, the weekly. I think this one's everyone's already talking about this one, so I'm not really going to offer up too much interesting things here. But looking at the weekly 21 exponential moving average, Bitcoin does not never breaks this in a generally bullish market. You see background right on over here, same thing, just doesn't break it. Same thing right on over here as well. And the only one off is that same area right after the 80% correction, which I would argue is a long form consolidation on the lows in kind of a bear market fashion. Anyways, as we're looking, as I see it right now, do we technically have the 21 exponential, or sorry, have we technically broken the 21 exponential moving average? No, we actually technically have not, because it needs to confirm tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But assuming that we close anywhere below 9,200, it will officially be broken. And while I do think that there's probably gonna be a bounce somewhere in this territory that we're in right now, it would start to look pretty nasty a little bit more longer term. So not only that, but if we bring up our momentum oscillators like RSI, we do see that the weekly RSI is breaking the level that it likes to hold in generally bullish markets. Going back to here in April of 2016, it looks like all of these big spikes down on these, 30% retracements. This one's 39% retracement. These are all met by spikes down on the weekly RSI to this territory right here, right around the 53 marker. And you can even make a nice trend line right there. It doesn't need to be perfect. This one happens to be perfect, though. It doesn't always need to be like that. But more importantly, we can see that Bitcoin is certainly not holding that level right now on weekly RSI. And again, barring any sort of like multi-$1,000 run between today and tomorrow to the upside, we certainly will close below this and violate this as well. So again, not consistent with the way that Bitcoin likes to play out its bull markets. within its history. Not only that, but if we go over here to the 2-day green 55 exponential moving average as well, never likes to get broken during generally bullish markets. We do have a few close below in the last one, but we never have opens and closes below, and we never veer too far away from it. Of course, this one has already been confirmed, and we are significantly away from it. More than double-digit percentage points away from it right now, 17% actually to be exact. So yes, while we are kind of wicking off the purple 200 exponential moving average, which again is another reason why I did buy this area for at the very least a quick scalp. Things are not looking so good on the macro. I'm not so thrilled with what I'm seeing. My big fear is as we come into the monthly, and actually this, and we'll leave, and I think this is going to be the last one for a chain of behavior discussion. Anyways, the monthly, which we briefly discussed before, is very important to me right here, because the reason why I was so bullish, or why I was really entertaining the idea that Bitcoin could maintain its bullish momentum for like the last couple of months between July and August, was because it was consolidating at a high level and was still holding this triangle up here near the highs, which is actually a very, very healthy thing to do. The second that we took out this 93.20 low right here, that was the second where this whole structure is destroyed, and we actually, we initiate the downside. And realistically, from a monthly perspective, there's really not too much holding us up at this current moment in time. If we put on the Bollinger Bands, you also see that the median Bollinger Band is coming in right around about 7,000 as well, which this is also a little bit more interesting to me, just because when you do reject off the top Bollinger Band, which this is now confirmed as, the second that we broke this to the downside, the second that we actually took out the last prior month's low at 93.20, this is confirmed as a local high, and aka rejection off the top Bollinger Band. Typically, extremely likely that you're going to come back down, at the very least test the median Bollinger Band, which again is right around that $7,900 target, whatever you want to call it. It's all in like the same $100 pocket as far as I'm concerned. So again, multiple things lining up with each other, and the monthly is a little bit more encouraging, I suppose, just because there's really no major reason to panic, like long term, as long as Bitcoin's above the 21 exponential moving average. But my fear is that we do something like the rest of the market has done. So my fear is that the rest of the market is pretty much just blown through all these major areas. If we go to Mr. Buterol, we have blown through the 21 exponential moving average, and we've not just blown through it, we've used it as resistance to sell off of on this current month of September. If we go over to Mrs. Litecoin, same thing right here, blew through it last month and now using it as resistance. If we go over here to Stellar hasn't even looked at it in like half a year, so it doesn't matter. Monero, what's Monero doing? Same thing as Litecoin. What's Ripple Me Nipples doing? Same thing as all these guys. Actually a little bit worse, I suppose. EOS is complete meltdown. Neo, even worse of a meltdown. In fact, new lows. In fact, even just a trending on the monthly to the downside, lower highs and lower lows. Same thing with Tron. Same thing, or maybe not same thing yet with Bcash, but still lower highs. So fair enough. And Zcash is already there. It is lower highs and lower lows confirmed. So that's my fear, is that Bitcoin would actually follow those guys, because typically we see the market move together, right? We typically see the market move in lockstep for the most part. There's fewer outliers here and there, but on the whole, most things follow the general path. And to me, it's I'm not saying that the alts are leading right now, but usually if we're seeing them break through all those major levels, I think it does kind of increase the probability that Bitcoin does as well. That's my fear, is that you see Bitcoin do one of those things. And at that point, if we do, let's actually briefly talk about this for a second, although it's not in any way, shape, or form in danger of happening like today or tomorrow or the next day. But if Bitcoin were to break the 21 exponential moving average on the monthly, I actually would target a move down all the way towards 4,600, down around here towards the mid 4,000s essentially. So that is what's at stake. Now, of course, again, it's very far away from happening. It's not anywhere near happening right now. We could very easily come down to the 21 and have a nice buying pressure off that long term. Completely fine. Seen it happen many times before in other trading assets, but it is this is something that I'm concerned with. As a long term believer in Bitcoin as well. You'd want to limit the downside dramas, I suppose. Anyways, okay, cool. So we spoke about all of that. Again, speaking about all this bear shit right now, and I'm quite literally long in the pants, my friends. Anyways, going over here to the daily. We do see daily All-Star is still down, daily Stochs still down, daily RSI is still is coming into the is coming in the more critical zone, but I don't really care too much about that. I only care about divergences on this, and right now we have no divergences to even be made. In fact, I'm trying to scoot along and find out which time frame is the highest time frame with bullish divergence present. This is a 12-hour right here, which I don't believe it would be cutting hairs, but technically speaking, we do not have it as we made a slightly lower low on the RSI right there. What about a 10-hour though? 10-hour certainly does have it, so 10 hours probably is going to be the highest time frame with bullish divergence, and that was the reason why I called that move to 8250, 8300 yesterday. Right now, I'd actually be looking for this to kind of get faded once again. I do think that in the lower time frames, we'd likely come back down and sweep the lows, not as low as yesterday at around like 7800, but probably like somewhere around 79 or 7950, somewhere in this pocket right here. I don't necessarily have an opinion on whether that holds or not there. Sorry, speaking on this trend line right here directly now, this guy right here, 7900. If we do close 2-hour dildos below 7900, then I suppose yes, then I'd have to look for the next trendy move to emerge. And because we do have a little bit of a consolidation here, we can actually make a trendy move off this. I'm going to hope that it does line up with our next target somewhere down around here. Oh my God, how fucking beautiful is that? Sometimes that technical analysis mumbo jumbo, fucking hocus pocus, sometimes it even works. So yeah, it actually would be pointing at that $7,200 target right here. So that'd be the next sort of leg if we do break to the downside, more immediately speaking. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin does try to mount out a little bit of a bounce a little bit further north. If Bitcoin could close an hourly, or sorry, maybe not an hourly, but a 2-hour dildo anywhere above 8150, I would be looking for a move likely to the top side of this range right here at around 80, let's call it like 8400, 8450 to 8500, somewhere in this pocket right here. In fact, I'll just put in a nice horizontal. Let's put it right here. That's about where I'm looking at, 8550-ish region, if we were to break the upside, but that's not looking very likely right now. This is obviously, kind of, it's a continuation pattern, although I don't really care too much about pattern traders. Triangles do work out, or have a higher degree of working out in my experience, especially in cryptocurrencies. So again, if you are trading this, that's what I'll be looking at right here. Upside kind of difficult just because we will always be having the 200 exponential moving average just kind of staring us on the face. The upside right here, 8750. So that's kind of like a ceiling right now. So if Bitcoin were to get like one massive squeeze to the upside, I'd be looking for about a $600 move up there, and then probably fade it there. That's actually where I would like to get into a position. And of course, if we did get above the 200 exponential moving average, I would be short term actually a little bit. Maybe that would be the initial sort of signal from my own self to be short term bullish. But technically speaking, I really want to see 9200 on a weekly closing basis regained before I go full bulls ahead, I suppose. Anyways, let's see. Did we go over to the 12-hour yet? 12-hour Stokes are crossing the upside right now. So while we do have the death cross on the 12-hour, actually it's kind of a weak cross the upside thus far that could very easily open back up. While we do, so more importantly about that, we do have 12-hour Stokes technically to the upside right now, and we do have bullish divergence on a 10-hour dildo time frame. So what does that typically line up for? Well, to me, it looks like we're going to be wedged within this region, but it wouldn't be too much to ask for another test up to at the very least the red 10 simple sometime in the next day and a half to 2 days, and that would take us somewhere back around a little bit below about 8350. So it really doesn't do too much actually for price action here. Would just bring us up to that next short-term target, I suppose. So again, even that is not going to help out all that much. That's what's making this very difficult right now. I want to go back down to the very low time frames, just check out what's going on here. Hourly Stokes down. What about 2-hour? What are we looking at on the 2-hour? 2-hour are having a fresh cross down. What about 3-hour? 3-hour are getting up there, but that's okay. They're actually still fine. And 4-hour, same thing. Plenty of room right there. So we don't really see anything. There's no obvious play for me on the lower time frames. When I see all those guys line up with each other, typically it's an obvious play. For right now, I'd just be looking for range and behavior once again between 7,900 base and if on a super aggressive level, about 8250 high. If that gets broken to the upside, I'd be looking for a move likely up here towards about 80. You know what? There is resistance here, and I do see it, but I really want to raise that up to where the 8750-ish region is, just because the daily 200 exponential moving average is there. But technically speaking, we could probably just make a pocket here between 87. Let's do that. Actually, let's just do that. And I'll put in a nice blue box of perhaps death and destruction here if this one does actually hold. Anyways, if we were to break north, I'd probably be looking, I'd be looking for a move up into this region here, and then probably continuation resistance most likely. It would be a change behavior on the short and medium time frames if we did get back above 87.50. That is important to acknowledge, but right now we're obviously not there. Anyways, yeah, so, as far as looking at the lower time frames, I don't really see any obvious play. It kind of looks to me like we want to come back down and sweep the lows again, and then probably test the resistance again. I don't think that we get the next move to like today. I think that we probably hold steady here, for the next 24 hours and such. But again, timing those sorts of things never something that I've ever been good at. Not that you need to be good at it to be a trader. I only care about relevant levels to begin with. Anyways, putting back on all major moving averages and going over here to the expected moves chart. Let's see if this matches up with anything. We do see expected moves chart has completely lost its negative slope and is now pretty much sideways, slight up tilt, which would goose the odds in the favor of us at the very least testing the top side of the first end deviation, which actually would line with that 8350-ish number to the upside. But that doesn't really do anything for the greater picture. To the downside, we have the first end deviation coming in right around 7900. So I would say that this is if we're looking at a consolidation here, it's extremely likely to play within that first end deviation. That's how it's designed. It's 68% likely to happen to be within this range right here. So I'd say that if we did come back down around there, if it's a short scalp, or sorry, if it's a small scalp, I think that that's completely fine. Probably an easy play. If you are going to be intentful on trading during the weekend madness, during the weekend bullshit is what it really is. Anyways, other than that, this is just suggesting that we consolidate sideways. Slight bias to testing the upside of this, but nothing more than that as far as I see. Anyways, going back into the fear and greed index, we are actually taking out a 32 today. So I want to talk about this for a second as well. Now, I want to first preface this conversation by saying the fear and greed index is like a secondary or tertiary consideration. I don't really care all that much about it, but it is interesting nonetheless. And when things are tight, I will go to it, kind of break the rubber, if you want to call it that. And there is something very interesting to me today. There is something very interesting to me here, as people are getting, we've had a sharp uptick in optimism, I suppose you could say. We went all the way from a 12 read all the way up to a 32 read. So quite literally almost close to tripling that spike down from a couple days ago, even though Bitcoin went even further south. So what is this suggesting? It's suggesting that we have bifurcation. We have divergences here. Bitcoin price action going further south. People are getting more optimistic. Which one matters more? Well, the liquidation engine matters more for price action. So I would say that in that case, if price action is still going down, but people are getting more optimistic, that would be a more bearish. Indication. So, anyways, again, not a primary or secondary, consideration, but something to keep in mind as it is right now. Now, with that said, while we are on the topic of secondary and tertiary considerations, we actually do have negative funding rates on BitMexico right now. So shorts are paying longs in order to hold their position. So quite literally, you are being paid every 8 hours to hold your position long on BitMex. Not only that, but we also saw something else very interesting happen. I noticed this on Deribit. I don't trade on BitMex, so I don't really know all that much about like the current sphere of it. But I'd imagine we're probably seeing something similar to this because they have the same sort of futures dates on them. And these are the December futures right here, which have pretty much come into parity. They're trading at 81,115.5. And the reason why this is significant is because what we're about to see, what this suggests with the premium collapsing, which by the way, the premium was like $200 above parity just like a few days ago. So quite literally, if you shorted on December futures just a few days ago and price literally stayed flat, you would be $200 in profit just by that alone. Right now we're about $10, maybe $12 above parity right now. So it's pretty much non-existent premium, especially for an expiration that is quite literally 3 months out of the way. So what does this suggest? It suggests that people are becoming more and more bearish on the forwards outlook on Bitcoin, and this is called backwardization, when you do see the further out month now have a discount in comparison to the spot underlying price action. As theoretically, things are supposed to gain value over time. So you'd expect the future value of that contract at a later date to be worth more than the current spot price. Anyways, right now they're pretty much equal to each other, and I would imagine with another leg down we will get backwardation where the futures are going to be worth less than spot parity. So that's what I'm looking at right here, and this also suggests some again, it suggests that the long-term outlook is going to be more on the bear side. The last time that we saw this was on the break from 6,000 down to 3,000, and yes, there was a decent premium on those futures on for that breakdown as well before the breakdown. But once we got that first leg down, we got backwardation. Anyways, I'm keeping an eye out for a similar thing happening on this right here, because this does matter, and they typically do get this right, especially in traditional market, because the market makers are just a lot better there with actually pricing these things. But the Bitcoin ones, the crypto ones, have been okay. They've been decent in the past. They don't get the first move, that they certainly get the next few ones. And so I would say that if we do have backwardation confirmed here, that'd just be another thing a little bit more on the bearish side. Of course, there are trading strategies with that, and there's a million ways to take that. But I did want to show that right there, as we haven't seen backwardation in a very, very long time. I mean, quite literally about a year now. Anyways, okay, let's go check out CMEs. They're closed for the week. CMEs did hold up above the blue 3/7 exponential moving average, so I do like that. Or sorry, did we? No, sorry, we did not. We did not close above on Friday. We did not close above on Friday, so we did lose the 377. Although I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a full-on break. I really need to see both an open and closure below before I call a full-on break. But again, same sort of range here, just different moving averages. On CMEs, we'd be using the 200 exponential moving average, or sorry, the 200 simple, or sorry, on CMEs, we use the 200 exponential and 377 exponential, and on spot, we were looking at the 200 simple and 377 exponential moving average, which I do believe is going to be about the same range, right? We got 83.50 to the upside right here, and about 8,000, or sorry, 8100 to the downside right here on that range. So we actually still see a little bit of a premium on CMEs, but I would imagine that probably does dissipate once we get them opening back up later tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, the next major moving average that we see on CMEs is coming all the way down around $7,000. Yet again, another thing kind of acting as like a magnet gravitational force. For that $7,000 level. So many things are lining up with that level it does feel a little more likely that we actually hit it. Not only that, but what else do we want to talk about? GBTC also closed for the week, but did we see the weekly? The weekly closed actually. The weekly actually did close below the 55 on CMEs. Just by the way, as an aside, what about GBTC? GBTC actually did close below the 55 as well. I'm actually quite surprised that they're breaking out on the first pass. Although again, I need to see both an open and close below. GBTC did hold the 377 exponential moving average, and again, same sort of range here, same sort of targets implied. So we do see good confluences, around the market is what I'm trying to show. Anyways, let's go check out Bitcoin dominance right now. I'm curious how that one's doing. Bitcoin dominance, and let's see. I'm gonna imagine that it's probably flat. It's flat right now, but I actually do think that we come back down here towards the 69% region. So I actually would be a little bit bearish on it, more immediate and in medium term. Or sorry, immediately I'd be kind of bearish on it. So alts are probably going to benefit versus satoshis, maybe not versus dollars, but versus satoshis, yes. And then I'd be looking for a range to essentially be created between this level right here and basically the high that we just put in right here. I don't really see anything new happening on top of that. I'd be watchful of the weekly here. If we do close the weekly below the 200 simple, I do think that this comes down significantly further. If we do close it above, then I'd be looking for some more sideways within that same range that we just defined. Again, between about 69% and 71.5% to the upside. If we do break to the downside, if we do close below the 200 simple, and especially the 200 exponential moving average, which is 69.69, then I would be looking for this to actually collapse quite significantly all the way down to the 66.5% region right here. Yeah, 67% to 66.5% region right here. But that would be more long term. And that's only if we break this guy right here. But again, keep your eyes on the weekly, because if that does get shattered, that would actually be a pretty damn nice play on a lot of alts versus satoshis, I'd imagine. Going over and looking at Mr. Cardano, how do we see it? We came back down, hit our bottom support once again, and what are we doing here? If I was just looking at Cardano, I'd actually say that this thing comes back down to the 440-ish level. But the Bitcoin dominance chart being a little more on the bear side, I would have to say that I'd be more bullish on it, looking for it to come back up to 500 satoshis first, find some resistance there, and then reassess after that. And that's probably the general thing that I have to say about most altcoins. Most altcoins, I'd probably have to say are gonna rally versus satoshis, maybe not versus dollars once again, but versus satoshis. They do have a good case right now, just based off the Bitcoin dominance chart. In fact, let's do something else today. Let's look at the total market cap as well. Very rarely do I look at this. Whoops, wrong thing. Bad mistake to be making in the early morning hours. Okay, so what do we have here? Yeah, so we broke this ascending triangle to the downside. Let's see where the measure move on this one does come in around. I am very, very curious because these ones do typically play out. This is pointed all the way down towards our April levels. I mean, that's very, again, concerning. That's like the $5,000 level, technically speaking. And what kind of turns me off more about this one is the fact that this is, well, what turns me off more about this is that this would fade the whole fucking rally is what it would do. I mean, that would quite literally bring us back down to like 5,500 on spot. Does not look good. Now, of course, it is the total market cap, which I don't put as much weight on just because it includes all the shitcoins in this market, which most of those guys are going to be completely irrelevant in the years to come. You know, of course, there's going to be some that are wildly successful as well. Don't get me wrong, but on the whole, you know, most things are going to be washed out by the wayside, I would imagine, or just completely irrelevant. You know, they'll probably still trade, but they'll be like a fucking penny stock essentially. So yeah, man, that I mean that's essentially what I'm, you know, that would be a counterpoint to what I'm looking at right here. But the total market cap is more bearish than is more bearish than Bitcoin spot, and so you know the general market could get hit a little bit harder in comparison to Bitcoin. But then again, you know, I'm not exactly sure the right way to kind of split that up, because realistically, it should be accounted for that most alts, when we're looking at the total market cap like this, most alts are going to naturally bring it down even more so, just because there's like your Bitcoins, then there's like your blue chips, like your top 5, then there's like the top 20, and then it's like everything else just like it's just what the fuck are we looking at? So it would make sense for this to be a little more on the bear side, because during the down moves, the weakest ones are going to be punished even more so. But you know, also, you know, does have to bring back that discussion that this could get a lot worse. Let's go check out gold as well. I'm curious what gold's doing today. Well, not today, as it's not trading today. We came all the way down to our bottom target, right around 1485. Fucking beautiful. Even closed above this trend line right here. Even more beautiful. Probably do care at this bounce a little bit more, maybe back up to like 1510. But as long as we hold this trend line right here, you can make the argument that this is perhaps reaccumulation. But the second that we break this trend line right here, this is going to look like a massive reversal, and it's going to look like Bitcoin actually foreshadowed this one as well, and we'd be targeting to move all the way down here towards 1400-ish region. So I'd keep an eye on that. But as long as this one does hold, it can be described as reaccumulation, and I'd still be bullish on gold long term. But if we break this area, that all goes by the wayside. I would be bearish, and I'd be looking for significantly lower prices back down to 1400, and perhaps even lower than that. But we'll have to kind of get back to that, you know, if and when it does happen. Anyways, let's see, what else do we have? What else do we have to talk about? It's already been 36 minutes. What the fuck? What the actual fuck, man? I suppose it's time to go look at some of the top shitcoins. Go check out Mr. Buterol at 172. Nice bounce initiated from yesterday. Very, 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 very nice. Let's see how the weekly's looking right now. If the weekly can close above 170, we could perhaps get another week going sideways here, which would be nice, which would be welcomed. But lower time frames, looking kind of sloppy, looking kind of nasty. Do you think that we get a move back down to about 166, or sorry, maybe not 166, but 166 and a quarter, somewhere down around here, and I'd be looking for this to trade mostly sideways in this range between 166, or sorry, is that 164? Is that one? Let's keep it 166, and in this guy right here, our current high, of course, right around 174 and a half, and we just tested resistances, so probably going to come back down and test some supports, and I'd imagine, you know, somewhere around 166 region is where I'd be looking towards, and probably another bounce around there. I don't think that we're ready to continue trending to the downside like today, but I do think that we're going to be putting in a consolidation here, and then maybe like in a day or two we can analyze if it's going to be accumulation or if it's going to be redistribution. And as it looks right now, it looks like redistribution to me, but it's way too early to kind of judge something like that. We need to let a couple days transpire just so that we can see, you know, an actual signature on price action before just blindly kind of suggesting. But looking at all momentum oscillators, let's look at momentum oscillators on the lower term time frames. 4-hour Stokes getting up there, 3-hour Stokes crossing down, 2-hour Stokes down, hourly Stokes down as well. So I do think that, that does strengthen my position that we do come back down and test around this region right here, 166 again. Probably do bounce off of it though as well. I don't think that we're ready to trend to the downside just yet. Probably some more sideways, and then probably pop back up and test around the 170-ish region, 172. Anyways, go check out Mrs. Litecoin as well. What's Mrs. Litecoin doing? I think first and foremost, it's very important to realize that, or remember that Mrs. Litecoin is on the white 200 moving average on the weekly, which I have a strong rule with not shorting into that level until it's formally broken. Does it mean I'm always going to be right on that? No, but it keeps me out of a lot of troubles, especially most importantly on Bitcoin. Remember when Bitcoin was down around $3,000? I was bearish in this region. I was pretty fucking bearish in this region. I was holding some pretty heavy shorts. That I started for much higher, to be fair, but I wouldn't add on to those shorts until we actually broke the 200 simple right here, which was 3,300, and we never broke it. So that is why I have those rules, because even though things did look bearish in that region, until you actually break it, it's the trend is likely to continue, and the trend is is keeping it up. Anyways, looking at Mrs. Litecoin right here, if we do actually break the 200 simple moving average, then technically speaking, I'd have to target a move all the way down here towards $44.50. That would be my next leg. If we do end the weekly above the white 200 simple, which is $56.50, and I'd look for this range to continue between about 56.5 between the white 200 simple and the purple 200 exponential moving average right here, 56.5 to 62.5. We'll say, probably play that out for a couple weeks and then we'll reassess. But again, the broad market's looking a lot more weak. Stellar completely faded its whole fucking rally that we had last week. I mean, Jesus Christ, man, that is just brutal. That is so fucking brutal right here. This is a 58% rally to the upside being faded immediately all the way down to 18%, and then the next week just can crush to the other side. I mean, that is brutal as brutal can get. And well, it's hard not to look for continuation on something like that. What about Monero? Monero just straight fucking meltdown. Think it's extremely likely to extremely likely to close below the 200 exponential moving average. If we close below this $61 pivot right here, that would also probably line up with more sustained downside, and probably line up with some more continuation down into the mid 40s. What about Ripples? 24 cents, nasty as well. If we close below the 200 exponential moving average right here, we probably do get another test back up to test it, but it likely does reject, and we continue trending to the downside. And if we really do that, I mean, targets to the downside are going to be like 17 cents, then 13.5 cents, and then 8 cents. I mean, it can get very, very nasty here. But again, still a lot more trading in the week to go before we confirm these ones. And of course, the monthly here as well, still sitting on the 55 as it is right now. But fair enough, it's still a little bit early, as it does close on Monday. Anyways, I'm curious what EOS is looking like right now. We already looked at the monthly, but weekly is a fucking meltdown. Again, weekly is just atrocious. It wouldn't take too much to bounce it back up to like $3.06, but it's hard not to look for continuation on something that looks like this, What about Neo? Same thing here. Could very easily have a bounce back up to $8, but I'd look for that to get quickly faded. Tron, same thing. This one already kind of had its bounce, but could even bounce a little bit more to like one spot 4 or 5 cent, and still get quickly and still probably get faded from there. Bcash, same thing. Its level would be somewhere right around 234.5. Zcash looks like it already kind of got it right here towards 43 and a quarter. So again, all of these things are kind of lining up with each other to not look like the picture of fucking health right now. Even though I don't necessarily think that we continue trending like today to the downside, I do think that we come back down here and sweep this $7,900 level, probably do hold back up around it, and then go test the resistances, whichever one's most relevant, maybe 8,100, maybe 8,200 right here. If we could actually break above this trend line, then I'd be looking for a move to populate all the way up and test probably around the 200 exponential moving average on the daily spot. But for right now, things are shaping up a little bit more for the south side, I suppose you could say. Of course, before I get going, I do want to talk about, we could just leave it off like this. If you want to make things easy for yourself, especially on a weekend like this, and not kind of fuck around with the lower time frames, look at the daily right here. As long as we're below the 200 simple, heavy pressure down. As long as we're above the blue 377 exponential moving average, we do not have there is no trending behavior to the downside to speak of still. But if we do close below the 377 exponential moving average, then basically I'm gonna be targeting about $1,000 move further south, down around $7,000, give or take. Give or take a couple $100, we'll call it. That all looks about right there. But for right now, I don't think that we're ready to break it just yet. If we break it at all, it could also be that we do break the 200 symbol to the upside, and then I'll be a lot more. I'd be a little bit more optimistic if we break the 200 exponential moving average right here to the upside. I'd be a lot more optimistic. But for right now, Bitcoin really held down, and this is shaping up to be a Wyckoff top, first markdown, and we're going to figure out over the next couple days if this is shaping up to be redistribution or accumulation. As it stands right now, this is lower highs and lower lows as well. And this would quite literally be redistribution. I'm curious, do we have any sort of divergence plays to be made? Yes, we do. We do have hidden bearish divergence right here between this point and this point, and we do have 2-hour RSI losing the exponential as well. Yeah, so I do think that we come back down to kind of sweep the lows, and then we'll reassess from there. But that should probably take it for today. I'll be signing off now. I do want to wish you well on this beautiful, or perhaps overcast Saturday morning over here from Chicago, Illinois. Take care and see you soon.